50 days transformed by prayer. Hi kids, I'd like to tell you a story about my dad when he was living in Africa as a missionary. So my dad was about 17 years old at the time of this story, and he was going to school in Africa. He was actually in South Africa for school, and he was able to grow a big beard when he was 17. And that's not very usual. A lot of 17-year-olds, they just have a little bit of hair there. My dad had a full big beard, so he looked much older than normal. So my dad came home from South Africa and he went back to where my grandparents were living and being as missionaries in Rwanda at a place near a place called Gitwe. And so they were traveling. My dad, my grandfather, and another missionary were traveling along the road. Now, something you need to know about Rwanda at this time was it was a time of war, and it could be very, very dangerous. And there were these people called mercenaries. They were like soldiers for hire. They would go around and they would do bad things for money, and it didn't matter who they were asked to do it to. They would just take the money and they would do whatever somebody asked of them. So these were very dangerous people. And the Rwandan people, the Rwandan army, didn't like these men, these mercenaries, because they were very evil and they would do bad things to people. So I need to tell you that because as my dad was driving along in the car, there was a roadblock by some Rwandan army guys. And these Rwandan army guys had been drinking, and so they were drunk. They weren't really thinking very clearly. And so they stopped my dad and my grandfather and the missionary, and they looked at my dad and they saw that big beard that he was wearing, and to them, he looked like a mercenary. They thought he was a really bad guy. So what they did was they pulled Dad out of the car and they started asking him all these questions. They were asking him questions in French though, and my dad didn't speak French very well. So they were getting more and more upset, and they were drunk, so they weren't thinking very clearly. And so the other missionary, he could speak really good French. So he gets out of the car and he comes around and he's trying to explain that my dad's not a bad guy, that he's a good guy. And then it wasn't going very well, and honestly, my dad was in danger of maybe being shot. So they were looking in the car and they saw my grandfather, and they said, well, who's that? He should come out of the car too. So my grandfather gets out and he comes over to the soldiers, and one of them looks at my grandfather and says, I think I recognize you. And this was pretty remarkable because they're all very drunk and they're not thinking very clearly. And he says, you're Bwana Bell, aren't you? And my grandfather said, yes. And they recognized him as the missionary who was in charge of the Gitwe mission. And this soldier says, this is a good man. We can trust this man. And so, because they could trust my grandfather, they said, oh, you're his son? Okay, then we're gonna let you go. So they let my dad go because he was the son of Bwana Bell, a trustworthy man. In the same way, in our walks of life, we can be trusted because we follow Jesus. If you are a son or a daughter of God, you can be trusted because people will see that. They'll say, oh, he's a son or a daughter of God? He's following God? Well, then we can trust him. And if there's ever any danger that you come through, if you are a daughter or a son of God, God will help you get through.
Prayer is just my opportunity to be able to connect with God. It's such a privilege to be able to get up in the morning and just to pray with my God and to know that I can come to him at any time and he's my friend, and just be able to be there each and every day with him. In our home, we begin our life, our morning with prayer. In the morning we get up around 5:30 in our home, and we come together, my wife and I, and we pray together to begin with. And then after that, we have our devotions where we go separately, and then we come back together again and just bring all of our members and all of the individuals and our concerns to God. And it's just wonderful to know that we can just sit there and pray and start our day right with God. Well, a number of different prayers. We've had prayers with individuals within our churches. We have a long list of individuals we pray for on a daily basis. We had a situation where we had a man that was told by the doctor that he was not going to make the next morning. And we prayed earnestly for this particular individual. And the next day we were there, and he was up in his bed eating his porridge. And we knew that the doctor had said that he wouldn't make through the morning. But we know that God had answered that particular prayer. And of course, we've had other prayers where we've prayed and God has answered. We've had prayers for our children, and we have asked the Lord to work things out in their lives, and we know that the Lord has answered. In my personal life, I remember praying one time that the Lord would sell our house, which we are presently doing at this time. And I said, Lord, could you please bring somebody? We need somebody to come today, if that's possible. And within just a couple of hours, somebody came to our door, and the Lord answered that prayer. But the Lord answers our prayer. We have a list, and in that list, we check those prayers that are answered. And as you do so, you find that over time that truly the Lord has been good, and He does answer our prayers.
50 days transformed by prayer.
Just a few words. That's right. If Christ does not return, our lives will be reduced to just a few words on our grave. The epitaph. Here lies Isaac Newton. Here lies Fernando Sabino, father, son. Just a few words. Few were the words used to describe the life of the prophetess Anna. Although it is only 3 verses, it is enough to show who she was and what she did and the achievements of her life. Now there was one, Anna, a prophetess, the daughter of Penuel of the tribe of Asher. She was of a great age and had lived with her husband 7 years from her virginity. And this woman was a widow of about 84 years, who did not depart from the temple, but served God with fastings and prayers night and day. And coming in that instant, she gave thanks to the Lord and spoke of him to all those who looked for redemption in Jerusalem. She was a woman who had suffered. She was a person who had faced lots of bitterness in life. A few years after getting married, she had to bury her husband. Her dreams were thrown to the ground. Her plans collapsed. There was only a small flame of hope burning in her heart. That was hope in the Messiah. If he comes, I can be sure that I will see my husband again one day. If I see him, I can rest in peace, because I know that my future is secure. That small flame of hope is what moved her every day to pray, to seek God for the realization of her dream. Every day she went to the temple to pray, hoping that was the day that her dreams would become a reality. Maybe that morning the pain of that wore 84-year-old body led her to question whether she should go to the temple to pray or not. I have prayed for so long. I have almost no strength left in me. I think I'll stay home today. If he hasn't come by now, I don't think he will come while I'm alive. But the flame of hope was chased away, the doubts, and strengthened her so that she could, though slowly, walk towards the temple. Who knows whether today is the day? She could have thought, well, she was not disappointed on that day because her biggest dream came true. She persisted in prayer, and God finally answered. Surely she would have liked to have had her prayer answered much sooner. However, it was that prayer of hope that probably kept her alive. Without this hope, she would perhaps have been unable to withstand her harsh life. My dear, I do not know how long you have been waiting for a blessing. I do not know how long you have prayed, begging God to hear your prayers. The only thing I can say is, do not give up. Keep praying. Our redemption is about to arrive. Because Anna saw her dream come true, you and I can be sure that salvation is available. We can have access to the throne of God through the merits of Jesus Christ. Do not give up. When you least expect it, salvation will manifest. Trust in the Lord. Keep crying out. Keep searching. Allow time for God to transform, to strengthen, and revive you. Trust in the Lord and rest in Him. Do not give up. Keep praying. Why not pray right now? Remember that prayer is the key in the hand of faith to unlock heaven's storehouse, where are treasured the boundless resources of omnipotence.